Okay, I'm back for example 2 on solving quadratic equations by factoring. I'm still here, not a YouTube star yet. It's coming, we know it. So, we got 2g squared minus 5g equals 88. Obviously this looks different than example 1. Example 1, everything equaled 0. These do not, but they need to equal 0. So what we have to do is we have to manipulate the equation to make it equal 0. Also, when we manipulate the equation, we're probably going to get it into that ax squared plus bx plus c form that we want because we can factor that. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 88, and by doing that, we end up with 0 on the right side, which is what we want. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2g squared minus 5g minus 88, and that equals 0. So the reason we did it that way is we now have it equal 0. And notice I didn't take the 88 from any of those because they're not like terms. I can't do 5g minus 88 and get like negative 93g or something like that. You can't do that because they're not like terms. So now we're going to factor. So 88, a bigger number than we typically deal with here. So 2g though, I know the only way to get that is 2g and g. Okay, I actually don't know the answer off the top of my head here. I haven't done this. So we're looking at factors of 88. They're going to give it a difference of negative 5. So I know one of these is going to be positive, one of these is going to be negative. Let's see, 88 could be 8 and 11. So what if we did minus 8 plus 11? If I were to check that out, my outer would be negative 16. My inner would be positive 11. Negative 16 plus 11 is negative 5. Okay, we're good. So now we can, now we factored it. Now we can solve. We can split it into 2, just like we did in example 1. So I got 2g plus 11 equals 0, or g minus 8 equals 0. Just going to solve both of those basic equations. This one's 2 steps. Subtract 11, 2g equals negative 11, divide by 2. We get g equals negative 11 halves. Just leave it as a fraction. Don't put it in as a decimal. The only time we are going to use decimals when we're solving any of these equations is if you had a decimal in the original problem. But since we didn't, we're going to leave it as a fraction. Over here, we're just adding 8 to both sides. And we get g equals 8. So our answer is g equals negative 11 halves, or g equals 8. All right, let's look at example 2. Similar to example 1 in that it doesn't equal 0. So we've got to manipulate this equation. Now, I've seen some people where they're like, all right, well, what if I subtract an x squared and then I'll have 0 on this side? That's true, but your issue would be on this side, you'd have a negative x squared, and you really don't want to try to factor a trinomial when you have a negative x squared. It's just going to make it more complicated. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring these over to the left side. So I'm going to subtract a 12x and I'm going to add a 36, and I got to do it to the left side as well. So I end up with x squared minus 12x plus 36. Over here, those cancel. I just end up with 0, which is what I want. Now, I can factor, so I'm going to put it into 2 binomials here. I'm going to look here, so these are both going to have to be x's, because x times x is x squared. This is negative, but this is positive, so that tells me both of these are going to be subtraction. Because the negative times the negative is going to give you a positive. So I'm going to give 2 numbers multiplied by 6 that add up to negative 12. It's going to be negative 6 times negative 6. So now what we do is we split it. We got x minus 6 equals 0, or x minus 6 equals 0. You might look at that and realize I'm writing the same thing over again, which I am. If we were to continue, we get x equals 6, or same thing here, obviously, x equals 6. Does that make sense? That's not a statement you would say. I have a banana or a banana. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody would say that. So when this happens, when you get 2 solutions that are both the same, you just cross one of them out. Your answer is just x equals 6. This equation only has 1 solution. That's the difference. Most of these are going to come up with 2 solutions. Every once in a while you'll get a no solution. But very rarely, but sometimes you get 1 solution. And later you'll see on a graph what that would look like and why that would happen. All right, so that is the examples 2. One more video coming, example 3.